Today, we're going to be doing a quick Q&A with Dr. Tim Kitchen. Tim was a teacher for 23 years prior to taking up his current position as Adobe's Senior Education Specialist for the Asia Pacific region. He's passionate about soft skills and making sure the next generation is career ready, whether they want to get into IT or other creative fields. Tim is also a strong advocate of turning your passions into a job. Tim was our week 1 and week 7 presenter, but he didn't have time to get to all the questions. So we're going to fire some at him right now. First question for Tim today. How is creativity and one's passions a worthy pathway to follow, given the tough economic conditions that we're currently facing?
Yeah, good question. And first of all, thank you, Georges, for the opportunity to answer these questions. In response to this first question, employers are actually looking for people who can be creative, especially just generally creative in the way that they work, with the way they think, the way they do things. It's because we're in very tough economic times that we actually need creative solutions to problems and creative ways to run our businesses. It's the businesses that can think outside the square that will be most successful in our current climate. And that's why in my presentation I mentioned the LinkedIn 2019 Global Talent Trends report, which showed that 92% of talent professionals and hiring managers say that soft skills are just as important or more important than hard skills, and creative is the single most searched term on LinkedIn. And that's pretty amazing when you think about it, because LinkedIn is where we employers go to look for potential employees. And it's fundamental that if you want to get a job, that you're on LinkedIn. And when we're looking for personalities, when we're looking for it, the word creative is a word that we type in all the time, because that's the type of person we're looking for, especially in this economic climate.
Absolutely. Creativity is essential for a lot of businesses right now. I 100% agree. When you speak about creatives, you normally refer to artists, musicians, those in the performing sort of sector more than others. But how can Adobe products help programmers explore their creativity?
Well, first of all, I want to expel the myth that creativity is just for the artists and the musicians. The potential for creativity is in everybody, and it's in all walks of life. I think of the great man, Sir Ken Robinson, who says creativity draws from many powers that we all have by virtue of being human. Creativity is possible in all areas of human life. He says that it's possible in science, in arts, in mathematics, in technology, in cuisine, in teaching, in politics, in business. Probably not in accounting. No, only kidding. Just don't be too creative when you're an accountant. But it's important to realize that creativity is everywhere and it is possible for everyone. When it comes to programmers, well, they come across problems that they need to solve every day just by nature of the work that they do. So being a creative problem solver is a real asset to the way that they would work.
Wonderful.
Actually, I've got a couple other things to say on that too. I was just reflecting on some great thought leaders who have done definitions of creativity. And there was this lady named Professor Ellen Jane Langer. She was from Harvard University, and she said, mindful creativity has dynamic qualities with the power to explore uncertainties that can reveal multiple perspectives during inactivity. So when you're a programmer, you're constantly coming up with issues that you need to kind of resolve with your solution, whatever language it is that you're working with. So if you can have multiple perspectives to a problem that you're solving, that's being creative. And of course, Steve Jobs, the great man himself, he used to say that it doesn't matter how great your coding is, if your solution doesn't feel right, if it doesn't look good, people aren't going to use it. So it's important to have that mix of the hard skill of programming, but the soft skill of being creative around it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Even with the creativity banners you have in the background. On that sort of topic, I guess, why is creativity, from your perspective, so much more valued than hard skills such as programming or drawing?
It's probably not valued as much. That's the issue. Creativity is generally not seen as something that is as a value, which is why our whole education system is pretty much based on hard skills, getting people ready for a particular type of job or career or skill. So I would reverse that question and say it should be more valued, and you can train hard skills on the job, and they change all the time. Hard skills are always changing and developing as technology develops. And let's face it, when you leave school and university and you start your first job and career, you realize you're back into square one again. It doesn't really matter how much you've learned at school and university. You'll be learning a whole lot of new things on the job, and they're hard skills that you're going to learn. And yet, skills like creativity are things that's something that you develop over your whole life, and particularly in your younger years, in your teen years. So you can train hard skills on the job, but developing creative qualities is a lifelong process. There was an American psychologist who I've been reading. His name's Dr. Alice Torrans, and he says aspects of creativity include uniqueness, fluidity, flexibility, elaboration, humor, and an avoidance of premature closure. I just love that as a definition of creativity. And there are programmers who are programmers. There are drawers who are drawers. But if you're a programmer who's got that extra edge and that extra creativity, you're going to stand out from the crowd and you're going to be more employable. If you're a drawer that's got that extra ability to be able to draw, well, you're going to stand out again from the edge. So that's where creativity makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. So I guess sort of on this topic as well, and how can somebody enhance their creativity? Are there any courses that one can do, or are there any things that someone can specifically enact on in order to enhance their creativity?
Yeah, there's lots of courses you can go and sign up for, and I know that we run courses at Adobe for teachers, particularly, and certainly the part of Adobe that I work with. We have a program called the Adobe Education Exchange, which has over 850,000 teachers involved in it. We've just started a new course, actually, just last month, called Adobe Creative, the Adobe Creative Educators Program, which involves doing a 1-hour course and then being part of this professional learning community, which is an international group. We're not unique to that. There are similar things that Apple do and Microsoft do and Google does for teachers. If you're not a teacher, there are so many things out there. I'm just thinking about some of the things that we offer for anyone, like the Behance Adobe Live program. It's just constant live training from experts, from creatives who are absolute experts in our software, who use it day to day at a huge, very high level. They're putting on how they're creative. They're showing us live through Behance Live or Adobe Live, how they use our programs in a whole range of different areas, and it's so inspiring to see the creativity. Another group that I've been recommending recently is a group called IDEO, and they run courses on creativity. They're American based, but they're online courses that you can do from anywhere, and that's IDEOU.com, IDEO.com.
Sounds like a lot of opportunities there for people students who want to enhance their creativity. Another important skill, as you've clearly recognized, is collaboration. We have a question here which says that they like working with some groups of people, but not groups of people that they don't know very well or they don't know personally. How can I improve that aspect of my collaboration?
Yeah, it's a common problem. We all have issues like that when not just at work, but at school. And it's something just by being human, we have conflicts, we have personality clashes. There are people we just don't like. But when you're in a workplace situation, often you're forced into working with a team that you have no choice of. So you do need to develop patience and tolerance skills, basically. And it's important for us to recognize how good we are at that while we're maybe a teenager and a young adult, because that's the time when we can really, not easily, but probably more easily, change our habits. I was thinking about Dr. Alice again, Dr. Alice, who I quoted before. His definition of creativity sort of extends a little bit further too. He says that the process, creativity is the process of becoming sensitive to problems, deficiencies, gaps in knowledge, missing elements and disharmonies. And that happens a lot when you're working with a team of people that you don't necessarily get on well with. You will have disharmonies, you'll have problems, and part of being creative is dealing and managing those issues. We need to take the advice of our close friends and our relatives, especially if they give us the hint that we lack tolerance. Sometimes we don't see it within ourselves. We just expect everyone to think what we think is right and believe what we believe. But if we get the hint and realize that maybe we aren't as tolerant as we should be, we need to learn to take on those cues. We need to learn to listen more than to speak. We need to be empathetic to those who are around us. We need to especially think about the people that we don't necessarily like, and then try and work out why that is the case. In a workplace, you'll be working with teams of people that you may not get on with, or even that you might have some cultural or even religious issues with, but you still need to be able to work with them. And working with these types of people can teach us a lot about ourselves, and that can help us generally to become better people if we develop those skills in patience and tolerance.
Wonderful. Hopefully that gives some insight into how to develop that collaborative skill for some of the students out there. Another question we have: how can I improve my creative skills for digital formats? I can execute ideas with pen and paper, but it seems a lot more difficult when I'm using a mouse and a keyboard.
Yeah, a lot of creatives start with paper, and that's just the way the brain works for a lot of us. Is we'll grab a piece of paper and a pen and start scribbling and drawing and creating. And that's certainly the way that I was brought up, because we didn't have a lot of digital things when I was young. But that is changing. We're finding more and more creatives now are going straight to digital first, and digital becomes their initial platform. But I totally understand where paper is important. So starting with paper is great. It's how a lot of creatives will start their projects, which is why we created some applications such as Adobe Capture. I don't know if you've come across Adobe Capture before. It's a free app. It's available on Android and on iOS. And so if you grab your smartphone, do a search on Google or Apple Play Store and have a look at it, there's a feature in it that allows you to capture your drawing. So let's say you've done a beautiful drawing, you've sketched it out in your pencil. You use Adobe Capture to take a picture of it. It converts it from an analog drawing into a vector diagram. And being a vector diagram, if you're not aware, that means it turns into mathematical algorithms that you can scale as big as a building and not lose any quality. That's the power of working with vectors. And that's why we developed a program called Adobe Illustrator, which is the graphic design tool of choice for most graphic designers, because when they're creating things, they don't know how big they're going to end up. It could be as big as a building or a big bill poster. So with something like Adobe Capture as a free app, it allows you to do that conversion from analog to digital, but then potentially go a lot further with something like Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Fresco is another great example. It's a free drawing app. It's available on the iPad Pro and on the Windows Surface tablet. Ideal for the Apple Pencil and the Windows stylus, but it's a way of doing your drawings, or even do it by hand first, take a picture of it, bring it into Fresco and add it as a layer, and then bring a layer on top of it. So then you're sketching and doing your digital work on top of what you've already planned. by hand. And of course, Photoshop has been able to do that for years. We're celebrating Photoshop's 30th anniversary this year. It's been around for a long time. And that works in layers too. So your first layer could be your hand drawing, and then you're building your digital on top of that bit by bit. I was working with a really amazing artist in Adelaide earlier this year online, and he has been working in the film industry for a number of years as a graphic designer, as a CGI artist, and he's an expert in Photoshop. And often he will start off by hand and use that as a perspective, or he'll even just take a photo of a landscape or something, and then he'll bring that in as his base layer and then draw on top of that with Photoshop to develop this incredible world, which eventually becomes a feature in a Hollywood movie. And he's been involved with a number of Marvel films, a number of films that we see on a regular basis. The Thor films, he helped produce some of the characters in there and some of the landscapes. And it's just incredible what you can do, starting with analog, but then moving into the digital with something like Photoshop. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And it's just another amazing outlet that people can use to express their ideas and get their work out there. Final question that we've got for today. How should teachers and those in learning environments balance teaching their students relative curriculum material along with teaching their students a bit more about soft skills?
Yeah, it's always a battle when you're a teacher, especially a secondary teacher, and especially a senior secondary teacher. You are constantly battling with the fact you have so much content that you need to deliver. As a teacher myself, I taught year 10, 11 and 12, so senior secondary. I taught that year level for about 15 years. And I realized that over that time that it's not about talking, it's not about content delivery, it's about giving students an opportunity to construct their own learning in a creative way. And then you'll get a much better knowledge. So I was a primary teacher first, and I was kind of taught that was important, and I had lots of opportunities to get my students to be creative in the things. We were teaching them tables, we were teaching them all the basics, and that was really important. But it wasn't just me telling them 1 times 1 equals 1 and then repeating it over and over again. I mean, that kind of helps a little bit, but for them to then go and play a game that is based around tables, it just brings the knowledge in so much better, and it becomes more of a lifelong skill. So so-called soft skills like collaboration, problem solving, creativity and communication can be developed alongside of the delivery of whatever curriculum it is that you're teaching. We know so much more about how the brain works these days. We know that when a teacher talks, only a minority of students will be able to actually convert that auditory signal into knowledge. Professor Eric Mazur is an expert on this. He's from Harvard University. He says that knowledge needs to be actively constructed by the learner. He says students need to do something with the information to turn it into knowledge. And that's something we often forget. And as teachers, we're so busy just delivering content, we forget the students actually need time to digest, to construct, to actually reflect on that new learning. So it becomes learning, or that new knowledge, so it becomes knowledge. It's doing something that helps enhance the soft skills. So whether it's a class discussion to enhance communication, whether it's a group work project like doing a podcast or a video, or designing an app, or designing a website, all of those things help the students to construct whatever the knowledge is, whatever the curriculum is, and helps them to construct their learning. One of my absolute gurus was Professor Seymour Papert, and he passed away a few years ago now. I had the great opportunity to actually meet him when I was a young teacher, when he was here in Melbourne, and he really inspired me as a young educator. And he said the role of the teacher is to create the conditions for invention rather than provide ready-made knowledge. And so every time I get the opportunity to talk to teachers, or just about every time, I try to encourage them to, when they set their assignments, to allow the opportunity for collaboration to take place, for digital communication skills like video production, app design, online publication to be developed. The more students construct the facts into meaningful creative artifacts, the better the learning, and the more prepared those students will be for future work and for lifelong learning as well.
Wonderful to hear about your perspectives on key skills that students are going to need moving forward and how those are used in the workplace. Thank you very much for your time today, Tim.
My pleasure, and thank you very much to the Australian Computer Society Foundation for all the work they're doing with the Big Day in events, and I look forward to continuing my support over the next few years.